Hi all, thank you for joining us. We've got Darren with us here today. Darren is the Deputy Chief Executive of the Institution of Structural Engineers. He was appointed the Director of Membership and Education in February 2008 and became the Deputy Chief Executive in January 2017. Darren has been overseeing the operation of the Membership and Education Directorate from careers and accreditation activities to the professional review and CPD. Over the course of the next couple of months, he's going to be delivering 4 presentations for us on the different stages of the membership process. First one, obviously today, is overview of routes to membership and academic qualifications. The next one on the 25th of April is IPD and the professional review interview. The third one on the 13th of May is the exam and how to prepare. And the fourth one on the 3rd of June is non-standard routes to membership and recent changes, e.g. associate route. Just so everyone knows, this event is being recorded, and by attending, you acknowledge that you may be photographed, filmed, or otherwise recorded, and these recordings may be published without limitation by the Institution of Structural Engineers. I'll now hand over to Darren. Actually, before I do that, just to say, if you've got any questions, please put them in the chat box and we'll read them out at the end for Darren to answer. Okay, and now I'll hand over to Darren. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Jo. Good afternoon, everyone, or if you're joining us from outside the UK, whatever the time is in your part of the world. Right, today's presentation, before we get into the detail, just a few thank yous. A thank you to the East Midlands Regional Group for organising the series of presentations. Particular thanks to the chair, Jo Reynolds-Smith, also to Barbara Sendolescu and Robert Moss for making all the detailed arrangements for the talks. Now, Jo has mentioned, today is the first presentation in a series of 4, and today we're going to focus on grades of membership, routes to membership, and more specifically on academic qualifications, taking the opportunity to go through the 8 what I call key grades of membership. There are 1 or 2 others like honorary fellowship, etc. But these are the 8 grades that most people will come across on a regular basis. Firstly, affiliate. It's designed for individuals who work in allied fields, so not necessarily for structural engineers as such, probably more for architects or people involved in surveying or in any other profession that is linked or allied with structural engineering. So perhaps the individual wants to network with some of our members, use some of our resources, have a part to play in the structural engineering profession, but not as a structural engineer. Student membership is pretty much self-explanatory. It's designed for those who are studying on a program that may lead to one of the professional grades. Now, there's quite a wide range of academic qualifications that we will accept. People can study on national certificates, HNCs, HNDs, BScs, BEng qualifications, MEng qualifications, other postgraduate qualifications like masters or PhDs. All of them potentially lead an individual to one of our professional grades, and as such, they are eligible to join the institution, firstly, as a student member. You then look at graduate membership, which is designed for those who have completed their degree programs or equivalent, and they're gaining experience in the workplace. Now, some graduates are entitled to use the GI Struct-E designation, but not all. In order to use the GI Struct-E designation, you must have passed the Certificate in Structural Behaviour exam, and in doing so, you will have demonstrated that you have the knowledge and understanding of structural behaviour that we're looking for. We now move on to the professional grades. So the first of those will be technician, and the institution will award the TI Struct-E designation. Once you have been registered as a technician and you have the TI Struct-E designation, you are free to register with the Engineering Council, and it's the Engineering Council that will award you the Eng Tech designation. You then have incorporated membership, IM, I Struct-E, that leads to IEng with the Engineering Council. You then have associate, member, and fellow, and the designations are AI Struct-E, MI Struct-E, and FI Struct-E. And all of those 3 grades lead to registration with the Engineering Council as CEng. Now, it's not compulsory to register with the Engineering Council, but the institution would strongly recommend that you do so. And around about 85 to 90% of our professionally qualified members choose to register with the Engineering Council. So if we go on to look at our existing grade structure, in the interest of space, I haven't included affiliate and student membership, but let's start with graduate membership. You're in the workplace, you're going through your period of initial professional development, or IPD, you're gaining experience, which will allow you ultimately in time to progress to one of the professional grades. So you have technician, incorporated, associate, member, and fellow. The three in blue, associate, member, and fellow, are chartered grades. The incorporated member is at the incorporated level. Technician will be at the Eng Tech level. Now, I've highlighted the incorporated member because there has been a change in that particular grade name. Prior to September of 2023, that grade would have been called associate member, and the designation would have been AMI-D. So you may have seen members with AMI-D or referring to themselves as an associate member. The name changed. The standards didn't. The requirements to become an incorporated member didn't change. But you can see from the slide, historically, we would have had associate member leading to incorporated and associate leading to chartered. You know, they're two grades with similar names, and there was a potential for confusion. So the institution took the decision to change associate member to incorporated member, and the designation from AMI-D to IMI-D. And in presentation 4, we'll deal with a little bit more detail as to why we made that change and some of the new routes through to the grade of associate AI-D. But what does that mean for candidates? What are the routes to membership and the different pathways that you can follow? Well, you've got student membership. So when you complete your student membership, you may decide, well, structural engineering perhaps isn't for me. I'm not going to go into a career as a structural engineer, but I still might be involved in the built environment professions. I might become an affiliate of the institution. That's fine. Student member might decide that they want to progress towards technician, TI-D, and that is another perfectly valid option for you. Most students will progress through to graduate membership. And as a graduate, you have 3 options. You might decide that based on your academic qualifications, what it's accredited for, and indeed the work experience that you're gaining in your company, you might decide, I want to go for incorporated member or IMI-D. That's absolutely fine. You might decide you want to go for member, MI-D. Now, that would normally involve you satisfying the academic requirements of the institution. You would have to pass through your period of IPD and ultimately pass a chartered member professional review interview and a 7-hour chartered member exam. Now, as of September 2023, you have a third option, and it is associate AI-D. Now, what's the difference between associate and member? Both of them require you to have an identical academic base. So you need to have an accredited MEng degree or the equivalent. Both of them require you to undertake a period of IPD. Now, that might last 3, 4, 5, 6 years, however long it takes you to satisfy the chartered core objectives, but the objectives are the same. Both routes require you to pass the chartered member professional review interview. So the interview for associate, the interview for member is the same. What's different is the 7-hour chartered member exam. There is no exam for the associate grade. There is a 7-hour exam for the member MI-D grade. Now, once you get to member MI-D, once you've gained sufficient experience, seniority, leadership, etc., you may decide that you wish to progress to the grade of fellow FI-D. So very briefly, that describes the sorts of routes that you can take through from student right the way through to fellowship, depending on your academic qualifications, the experience you've gained, and your ability to pass our professional review interviews and exams. So let's look in a little bit more detail at routes to membership. But before we get to the detail, it's important to note that progressing through to professional membership is a bit like climbing a mountain. And in this case, I've got a picture of Mount Everest. There are lots of different ways that you can climb Mount Everest. You can go up the north, the south, the east, or the west face. And the same applies to routes to membership. You may satisfy your academic requirements in a slightly different way. Some of you will have an MEng, some of you will have a BEng and further learning. That's fine. You may record your IPD in different ways. So some of you will do it retrospectively. Some of you will go through formal training programs. If you're professionally qualified with another institution, you may be eligible for some exemptions in our qualifying route. The key point is we try to be accessible, we try to be inclusive. There are lots of different ways that you can go to technician, incorporated, or chartered membership. The trick is finding the right one for you, and the right one for you might be different to the route that your colleague sitting next to you in the office is following. So be aware of all the different options and all the different routes. Make sure you follow the route that is best for you. So there's always a route for everyone, whatever your academic background. Even if you don't have formal academic qualifications, there is a way through institution grades and routes, and we can take you as far as you want to go. Really, it's your work experience and your ability to pass the interviews and the exams, which are the key aspects here. The standard route involves passing a professional review interview and exam, and that's the same for chartered and for incorporated membership. I've already mentioned mutual recognition agreements. Now, this is where you may be professionally qualified with another organisation. So in the UK, that might be the ICE, and you might be CEng MICE. But there is also mutual recognition agreements with international bodies. So Engineers Australia, Engineers New Zealand, Engineers Ireland, just to name a few. Now, depending on the route that you followed, you may be exempt from some of our qualifying processes. And then there are the more specialist routes, and the research and development route is one. We'll cover in more detail mutual recognition agreements and the research and development route in presentation 4. But for the purposes of today's presentation, the next slide kind of describes what you need to do. Now, this is a slide, and I've noted down chartered membership throughout, but it could equally apply to incorporated membership. So to become a chartered structural engineer, you need to satisfy the academic base for chartered membership. I think that's pretty well understood. You need to undertake a period of IPD, and as I said, there's no time frame for this. Some candidates can do it in 3 years. It would be rare for a candidate to do it in less than 3 years. Some candidates might take 5, 6, 7, even more time to get through that period of IPD. It really depends on the sort of experience that they're getting and their ability to satisfy our 10 core objectives. Now, when the candidate is ready, he or she may go forward to their professional review, and that's the professional review interview, or PRI, and the exam. Now, you'll see there's an arrow, and it shows that basically you can take the interview and the exam in any order. Some candidates will say, I'll get the PRI out of the way, and then I'll move on to the exam maybe a few months, a year or two later. Some candidates decide the exact opposite and say, actually, maybe the exam is the bit that I want to get through first. Many people consider that the harder part of the professional review process. Some people decide, I want to do this as quickly as possible, and I'll take the interview and the exam in parallel. Now, clearly, you won't have the interview and the exam on the same day, but it will be in the same sort of time period to allow you to move through the professional review process as quickly as possible. Ultimately, you pass the professional review interview, you pass the exam, and you will be elected to MI/D. Now, the same applies if you're going through incorporated, satisfy the academic base for incorporated membership, you do your incorporated IPD, your incorporated interview, your incorporated exam, and you're elected to incorporated membership, IMI-T. So the principle, the frameworks are the same. Now, where we have some of the more specialist routes, you can see over on the right-hand side of the slide there are other engineering institutions, and we have agreements with those other engineering institutions. So where an agreement exists, if a candidate has gone through the normal qualifying process with that institution, they may be exempt from our initial professional development, and they may be exempt from our professional review interview. And those candidates can go straight through to the chartered member exam. When they pass the chartered member exam, they're elected MI-T. Similarly, over on the left-hand side of the slide, there are specialist routes such as the research and development route. So the candidates still need to have the right academic qualifications. They still need to have gained experience and be able to satisfy our initial professional development requirements. They still need to pass the same professional review interview, but this time, instead of taking the chartered member exam, there is a research review. So one of our panels, the application and professional review panel, will sit down, look at the candidate's research history, and normally, you'd expect quite a significant research history there, individuals who are published in internationally recognized magazines and journals. Their research will be at the chartered member level. It's progressive, it's at the cutting edge. And if the candidate satisfies the requirements, they can be elected to MI-T, and the research review is in lieu of the chartered member exam. Now, as I said, we'll cover the details of those more specialist routes in presentation 4, but you can see there are lots of different ways that you can move through the qualifying process to become professionally qualified with the institution. Now, I mentioned earlier some of the changes with the associate or the incorporated grade. This slide shows the route to chartered membership now. You satisfy the academic base, you do the chartered member initial professional development, you pass your professional review interview. You now have a choice. You can proceed to the exam and go directly to MI-T, and that's the standard route that candidates have followed for 100 years or more. However, if you have the right academic base and you pass your professional review interview, you might decide to apply for associate and register with the Engineering Council as CEng. Thereafter, at a time convenient to you, you can decide, I'll take the chartered member exam and I'll progress to MI-T. But that could be a matter of months after you become CEng AI-T, or it could be 2, 3, 4 years down the line, depending on how you want to progress to MI-T. So again, it's all about choice, it's all about accessibility, it's all about recognizing your competence as you move through the professional qualification framework. So the standard route, 3 steps to becoming professionally qualified with the institution: satisfy the academic requirements, satisfy the initial professional development or IPD requirements, pass the professional review. Today, we're really focusing on academic qualifications. So what are the academic qualifications for chartered membership? It's quite simple. You need to have an accredited MEng degree or the equivalent. And the important point here is or the equivalent. Not everyone will have an MEng qualification. If you're in the UK, not everyone will have studied to the MEng level. If you are based internationally, maybe in your particular part of the world, they don't have MEng type qualifications. It doesn't matter. If you have an accredited MEng, nice, simple tick, you've satisfied the requirements, you don't need to worry any further. But there are lots of different ways that people with different qualifications can top up those qualifications to make sure that they are at the MEng standard. And the ways in which people can top up the qualifications is called further learning. So for example, if you have a BEng honours degree, and that's a degree that will be accredited as part satisfying the academic base for chartered membership, well, you can have that BEng honours degree and you can take our chartered member exam. Put the 2 together, it equates to an MEng. You have satisfied the academic requirements for chartered membership with this institution and chartered membership with the Engineering Council. Another option, you have a BEng honours, you could study an accredited MSc. BEng Honours plus accredited MSc will equal an MEng. For some individuals, they don't want to go forward to university and study an MSc. They may not have the time, they may not have the money. So there are ways that you can demonstrate your knowledge through experiential learning. So that would be the technical report route. So effectively, a candidate would put forward a report, normally around about 5,000 words. They would write about 2 projects that they've worked on. And in that report, they would demonstrate that they've gained the same knowledge that they would have gained had they stayed on at university and studied to the MEng level. So again, there are lots of different ways that you can satisfy the MEng requirement. Either take an accredited MEng degree, take a BEng Honours, which is accredited at the chartered level, and top it up with an MSc, a technical report route, or the chartered member exam. We can guide you and help you in making the right decision as to which route is the best for you. Now, if you're going forward for incorporated membership, the standard is a Bachelor of Science, a BSc, ordinary level, or the equivalent. So what does the equivalent look like? That could be a higher national diploma and the incorporated member exam. It could be a different qualification, maybe a HNC and a technical report route. So again, there's options. If you're going for technician membership, you're looking at a level 3 qualification. So that's normally a national certificate in civil engineering or something of that equivalent standard. Again, there's flexibility there. We can look at a range of different qualifications. And even if a person doesn't have any formal qualifications at all, we can take them through some sort of technical report route or experience appraisal to make sure that they've got the right academic knowledge to go on to technician membership. But MEng for chartered, BSc for incorporated membership, and a level 3 national certificate for technician membership. So the next question is, might I've gone through my program of study? Is my degree, my ONC, my HND, is it accredited? Is it recognized by the institution? If it is accredited, well, what level is it accredited at? Is it chartered? Is it incorporated? Is it technician? Is my qualification recognized under an international agreement? So perhaps you haven't studied in the UK, which is absolutely fine, but you may have studied in mainland Europe, you may have studied in Australia, Canada, United States, South Africa. Lots of different universities and courses around the world will be covered by international agreements. We'll cover that in just a few minutes or so. Now, if your qualification is not accredited or not recognized, then what do you do? Well, firstly, and most importantly, you don't worry about that. There are parts of the world where maybe there aren't professional engineering institutions or bodies that accredit qualifications. And some of those bodies may not be party to international agreements. It doesn't mean that your qualification isn't good enough. It just means it hasn't been subject to some sort of recognition process. So if your qualification is not accredited or it's not recognized under an international agreement, don't worry. You would apply for an academic assessment by the institution's academic qualification panel, and we'll look at your particular qualification and see how it maps against our requirements. And again, I'll cover that in a little bit more detail later on. So, accredited qualifications. If you've studied at a UK university, it's highly likely that your qualification has been accredited by the Joint Board of Moderators, or JBM. Now, the Joint Board of Moderators has been around for decades. It was founded by the Institution of Structural Engineers and the Institution of Civil Engineers. More recently, the CIHT, the IHE, and the PWI, the Permanent Way Institute, have joined the Joint Board of Moderators. So 5 institutions working together. We will go and visit universities. We'll check that the universities have the right facilities, the right teachers and lecturing staff. We'll check that the curriculum is okay, that the output from the students is at the right level. And if you meet all our requirements, we'll accredit the courses. The JBM accredits according to course start dates. So when you started the course, was it accredited? Most importantly, when you're looking at academic qualifications, Whether it's in the UK or whether it's international, if you are unsure of your academic eligibility, contact the membership department. And I'll say that again. If you are unsure of your academic eligibility, contact the membership department. Many candidates say, oh, I think I'm okay. And you progress through your period of IPD, you get ready for your professional review interview, you apply for your professional review interview, and then you find out that your degree is not academically accredited or it's not suitable for a particular grade of membership. We don't want that to happen. So if you're in any doubt, contact the institution, say, look, this is where I studied, this is what I studied, these are my start-finish dates, is my course accredited? And it's always best to ask that question quite early on in the process, rather than waiting for 3, 4, 5 years and finding out that maybe there's further learning that you have to do in order to go forward to one of the professional grades. So if you're in any doubt, contact the membership department. So JBM. When you click on the JBM website, you'll see a link to accredited courses, and you'll come to this page. And there's 6 different lists, 7 different lists that you can download. So integrated masters, that's your MEng. So if you have an MEng and you want to check that your course is accredited, you'll click on the link for integrated masters. You'll see all the universities that offer accredited MEng programs, nice and simple. You have bachelor's honours. Now, these are degrees that have been accredited as partially meeting the requirement for CEng. Very simply, an MEng is 4 years, BEng 3 years. So a very simplistic way of looking at it is the BEng honours is 75% of the MEng. Now, an academic will tell you there's lots of more subtle differences, but for the purposes of this presentation, consider the bachelor's honours to be 75% of the MEng. So it's partially accredited for meeting CEng, fully accredited for meeting IEng. You then have the third list, bachelor's with or without honours and foundation degrees. Now, these degrees will be looking towards the IEng accreditation. And then below, degree apprenticeships, technician programs, further learning, which will tend to be your MSc programs. So whatever your qualification, the first decision you've got to make is, am I going to download the MEng list? Am I going to download the BEng honours list? Am I going to download the bachelor's list, which may be BSc or maybe BEng? You have to decide which list you're going to look at. And sometimes you might need to look, particularly when you're looking at bachelor's degrees, if it's not on the first bachelor's honours list, look on the second bachelor's list. And we'll again cover that in a little bit more detail later on. So let's look at some scenarios. So candidate 1 graduated with an MEng in civil engineering. It was a 5-year full-time degree programme from the University of Aberdeen in 2019. And the candidate wants to know, are they academically eligible for chartered membership? So the first thing they do, go onto the JBM website and say, right, what list am I going to download? Well, it's an MEng, so I'm going to look at integrated masters. You download the list and you look for the University of Aberdeen. You find the University of Aberdeen, you'll see there is an MEng, and you'll see circled, it's an MEng in civil engineering. Over on the left-hand side, you'll see that that course was accredited from 1999 through to 2024, and their start dates. So if you start your degree in September 2024, it's an accredited program, and you're protected for the duration of that course. So the candidate in question studied a 5-year MEng in civil engineering, and they graduated in 2019. Graduated in 2019, it's a 5-year program. That means they would have started in 2014. 2014 fits within the accreditation period of 1999 to 2024. The course is accredited. So that individual now knows that they are academically eligible for chartered membership of the institution and chartered CEng with the Engineering Council. Nice and simple. Candidate 2 graduated with an MEng in offshore engineering. Again, it's a 5-year program from the University of Aberdeen in 2009. Again, you have a decision to make. What list am I going to download? Is it the Integrated Masters? Yes, because it's an MEng program. So you download the Integrated Masters, you have a look, you find the university, and again, for simplicity, I picked Aberdeen. So MEng, offshore engineering, it's listed, great. The accreditation period is 1999 to 2004. This individual graduated in 2009. Oh, 2009, does that mean that the course is accredited? Well, yes, again, we're looking at start dates. So the individual graduated in 2009. That means they started the program in 2004. When they started it, the program was accredited. That means they have an accredited MEng degree and will satisfy the institution's academic requirements for chartered membership. Quite straightforward. Scenario 3. This time an individual has a BEng Honours Civil Engineering Construction 3-year full-time degree programme from the University of Coventry in 2010. So BEng Honours Civil Engineering Construction. Which list are you going to look at? Well, you know it's not an MEng, so you're not going to be looking at an integrated master's. It's not a degree apprenticeship. It's not a program leading to technician. It's not an MSc type program, so it's not further learning. So it's going to be one of the two bachelor's lists. So you look on bachelor's honours, that is partially satisfying CEng and fully satisfying IEng. The course will not be listed there. So you move to the second list, bachelor's with or without honours and foundation degrees. The course is listed there. So we find Coventry University, we find BEng Honours Civil Engineering and Construction, we find the accreditation dates 1999 to 2014. It's a 3-year full-time program. Great. Now, this individual graduated in 2010. It's a 3-year program. That means they would have started in 2007. That means it is accredited. But the key point here, although it's accredited for IEng. And it has the title BEng Honours. Normally, BEng Honours might be considered to be going towards chartered membership, but on this occasion, Coventry University have decided they have an IEng degree. They didn't want to call it a BSc Honours, they called it a BEng Honours, but it is accredited for IEng, not for CEng. So when you are looking at your degree programs, don't assume that BEng Honours means that you're going towards chartered and BSc means you're going towards IEng. That's not necessarily the case. You need to look at your degree title. You need to look at the appropriate list on the JVM website, see if it's listed and confirm whether your course is accredited as partially satisfying CEng or fully satisfying IEng. Again, this is where it gets really, really tricky. If you're in any doubt, contact the institution and we'll be able to confirm your academic eligibility. So you have a degree from a UK university. Maybe you have a degree from a UK university that has a satellite campus internationally. That's fine. They'll all be listed on the JVM website. But what happens if you have a degree that hasn't been accredited by the Joint Board of Moderators? You know, most universities around the world are not going to pay for the JVM to fly to their part of the world and accredit their courses. They may already have domestic institutions that are already doing that. So they don't seek accreditation from the JVM or from the institution. That's fine. We have lots of international agreements. So the first one is the European Engineering Education Database, previously called the FIANI Index. It covers most of Europe, and we'll go into that in a little bit more detail, but it's not EU linked or anything like that. There are a range of European countries covered within this agreement. There will be engineering institutions in each of those countries. They will undertake accreditation processes very similar to the processes undertaken by the JVM. And basically, if they're on the list, if a course is on the list, we can be sure that it's broadly equivalent or substantially equivalent to the courses that we have in the UK. The same applies when you're looking at some of the other international agreements. Washington Accord. Washington Accord is at the chartered level. but it's a broader geographical spread as compared to the European Engineering Education Database. So Washington Accord, there'll be multiple signatories: North America, Asia, Australasia, Europe, the lot. As I said, Washington Accord is at the chartered level. Sydney Accord, same principle, but it's at the IEng level. And Dublin Accord, again, the same principle, but it is at the EngTech level. So if we look at the European Engineering Education Database, a couple of key issues, key facts. The first problem we have is that European degrees often have different titles. Now, it doesn't mean there's anything wrong with the course. The content may be very, very similar to the courses that we have in the UK. So a course that might be called civil engineering in the UK could have a very different title elsewhere in Europe. So it might be called industrial engineering, construction engineering, building engineering. Maybe something's been lost in translation. Maybe it's just a title that is more appropriate for that country, but it doesn't have civil engineering. Now, that creates a problem for the staff at the institution, because we're given guidelines that we work to, and it says if the degree is on the EEED database, and if it's in civil or structural engineering, you can accept it. But if it's not in civil or structural engineering, well, how can we tell whether the content is appropriate? If that's the case, and the title isn't civil engineering or structural engineering, maybe it is industrial engineering, then unfortunately the qualification has to go to our academic qualification panel. They'll look at the curriculum, they'll look at the syllabus, they'll map that against what we're looking for in our courses. Is there enough structural engineering, design, analysis, materials, geotechnics, etc., etc.? And if so, it will be accepted. If there's gaps and there isn't enough materials or geotechnics, etc., then the candidate would be asked to do further learning. But when we're looking at the European degrees, we're looking initially to see, is the title civil or structural engineering? You also have three types of qualifications listed on the European Engineering Education Database. So you'll have what's known as first cycle degrees. They're normally 3 years, and they're equivalent to our IEng degrees. You have second cycle degrees, normally between 4 and 6 years. They're accredited to the chartered level, so that they're at the MEng standard. You have a different type of second cycle degree, normally 1 or 2 years, and they're akin to our MScs, and they're accredited as further learning. So when we're looking at the European qualifications, we're looking at the title, and we want to see civil and structural engineering. We're looking to see if the university in the particular course is mentioned on this database, and we're looking to see, is it a first or a second cycle degree? What level is it accredited to? So again, let's look at a scenario to try and put this into some context. So we have a candidate, and they've studied a tutorial of Engineering in civil engineering from the University of Pisa in 2018. So did the individual study a recognised course? And if so, and it is accredited or recognised, what's it accredited for? So you go on to the European Engineering Education Database, you look for Italy, you look for the University of Pisa, and then you say, right, is the course listed? And you can see on this slide, there is a course in civil engineering. It is Dottorian Engineering. And so great, civil engineering, the title's there. The duration is B plus 5U. That means it's a 5-year degree course. So straight away, we know it is an SCD, or second cycle degree equivalent. So it's in civil engineering, it's on the website, it's been accredited. It is a second cycle degree, 5 years in length. That means it's equivalent to the MEng. So it's a 3-step process we go through. Does the degree contain the word civil or structural engineering? Yes, it's there. Is the program listed on the FIANI database? Yes, it's on the FIANI database. Is it a first or a second cycle degree? We can see it's a second cycle degree, 5 years in duration. That means it's equivalent to the MEng. So again, if you have a degree from mainland Europe, you would look on this EEE database. look for your country, look for your university, and look to see if your particular degree is listed. If it's in civil and structural engineering, look to see then if it's a first cycle degree or a second cycle degree. And again, any doubt at all, contact the institution and we'll check it for you. So that's Europe covered. What about the rest of the world? Well, let's take a look at the Washington Accord. So the Washington Accord is basically an international agreement. Different engineering bodies around the world have signed up to it. And we have to look at each other's accreditation standards to make sure we're all operating broadly on a level playing field. That the term substantially equivalent is often used. When you look at the Washington Accord countries, there's lots of them. So you've got Australia, Canada, China, Costa Rica, India, Korea, Singapore, scattered all around the world. So a far more broad and diverse range of countries here. It's not just Europe. There are a couple of things that you need to be aware of. Firstly, when you look at this slide, you'll see effective date. So that's the date that that particular signatory joined the Washington Accord. You also have recognition by. So are we looking at intake year when the individual started the course, or are you looking at graduation year? Unfortunately, to make things complicated, different signatories take different approaches. We in the UK Engineering Council, we accredit by intake year. The majority of Washington Accord countries accredit by graduation year. But again, any doubt, you contact us. Now, why are these things important? Why is effective date important? Well, effective date is important because prior to a signatory joining the Washington Accord, we're under no obligation to accept those courses. They haven't joined the Washington Accord, they're not part of the agreement. So basically, the Washington Accord for certain countries will only apply when they started. Some of the founding members, such as the UK, we started back in 1989, but other signatories joined far more recently. So, for example, India in 2014. So if you looked at a very good university in India and the individual graduated in 1999, they won't be covered by the Washington Accord because India only joined the Washington Accord in 2014. So when you're looking at the Washington Accord and you're seeing if your degree or your university is listed, you need to look at the effective date and say, right, was my country part of the Washington Accord when I was studying? Is my university listed? So effective date becomes quite important. Another key issue with regards to the Washington Accord, prior to the 1st of July 2015, all Washington Accord degrees that were recognised were considered to be at the MEng level. After the 1st of July 2015, the Engineering Council said, no, that's changed. All Washington Accord degrees are deemed to be at the BEng honours standard. Now, why is that important? Well, if you had a degree that was previously recognised, candidates with those type of qualifications now have a choice. They can go for associate, A-I-Struct-D and C-Eng registration because they've got the right academic base, or they can go for member, M-I-Struct-D, because they've got the right academic base. Their qualification is equivalent to the MEng. If you've got a qualification that was started after the 1st of July 2015, well, now you're at the BEng honours level. BEng honours is not MEng, so you don't have the academic base for associate AI-Struct-D. If you want to go for MI-Struct-D, well, you'll take the exam. The exam will act as further learning, so you can become MI-Struct-D and a member, but associate is not open to individuals with Washington Accord degrees that were gained after the 1st of July 2015. Again, quite a detailed matter, quite complicated. Any questions about that, you contact the institution. So again, let's look at a scenario. So this candidate graduated from a university in Malaysia with a Bachelor's of Engineering Civil program. It was a 4-year program and the individual graduated in 2018. So again, this individual wants to know, is my course recognised under the Washington Accord and is it academically eligible? So there's a 4-stage process you have to follow. Again, we're looking for, does the degree contain civil or structural engineering? Why is it important? Well, because if an individual studied chemical engineering, that's not going to provide the foundation to go on and pass your professional review interview and pass your chartered member exam. So we're looking for civil or structural engineering in the title. Is the program listed on the Washington Accord signatory website? So this is where you have to look for your particular signatory, in this case, Malaysia. Say, right, let's go onto that organization's website. Let's look at their list of accredited degrees. Was the program started or completed, depending on whether the signatory works on start dates or graduation dates, after the signatory became a full member of the Washington Accord? And do the start and graduation dates match those on the Washington Accord signatory website? So in this particular case, and I'll take you back a slide, we're looking for the University Technology Malaysia. And so straight away, we know that the signatory is Malaysia, the Board of Engineers Malaysia. So we need to go to the Board of Engineers Malaysia website. We need to look for that university, and we need to see if the Bachelor's of Engineering Civil program is recognized. So when you go onto the website, you can say, right, this is the BEM. It is that university listing. There's a Bachelor of Engineering there. It's a 4-year program, and it's accredited from 2009 right the way through to 2024. So let's run through that 4-stage process. Does the degree contain civil or structural engineering? Yes, the title is Bachelor of Engineering Civil. Tick. First step over. Is the program listed on the Washington Accord signatory website? Yes, we've gone to the Board of Engineers Malaysia website, and we can see that the university is listed and that particular course is listed. Was the program started or completed after the signatory became a full member of the Washington Accord? And yes, the Board of Engineers Malaysia joined the Washington Accord in 2009. The student graduated in 2018. So clearly they started and finished their course after the Board of Engineers Malaysia joined the Washington Accord. On to the final question, do the start and graduation dates finish? Well, yes, the program was accredited from 2009 through to 2024. The individual graduated in 2018. They started it in 2014. The accreditation dates are fine. So we now know that this individual has fully satisfied the academic requirements for chartered membership of the institution. No further learning required. So that's a scenario for the Washington Accord. I think you'll agree, JBM is quite straightforward. The European Engineering Education Database, a little bit more complicated. The Washington Accord database, again, there's some complexity there. You should be able to work your way through it, but any doubt, you contact the institution and we'll be able to confirm whether your degree is accredited, and if so, what level it's accredited for. So moving on to the academic qualification and other cases. So I mentioned earlier, we have an academic qualification panel. The academic qualification panel is made up of around about 14 individuals. Most of them are academics at universities that run accredited qualifications. And if you do not have a degree that's recognized by the JBM or recognized under one of the international agreements, as I've said, do not worry. It doesn't mean that there's a problem with your degree. It just means that your degree probably hasn't been put forward for accreditation or is not part of an international agreement. That's fine. Now, at this stage, you would need to send through copies of your degree certificates. And if they're in a different language, you need to translate them into English. We need to look at your transcripts. So these are the lists of the modules that you've studied and the marks that you gained in each of the modules. And we'll look at that degree. We'll look at the syllabus and the modules that you've studied and the marks that you've gained, and we will compare that to the standards in the UK. And we'll say, right, does it match to the MEng standard? Does it match to a BEng standard? Does it match to a BSc standard? We will undertake that mapping exercise. And if we feel that the content is broadly equivalent to that which we would expect in an accredited degree in the UK, we'll say, fine, tick. You're accredited being as at the MEng level or the BEng honours level, no problem. If there are gaps, and sometimes there are gaps because not every university and not every degree course is identical around the world. If there are gaps, we'll tell you what those gaps are, and we'll say, okay, you don't have quite enough structural analysis, or you don't have quite enough structural design, or maybe there's a gap in geotechnics or in materials. That's the case, we'll tell you, and then we'll advise you how to plug that gap. Could be a technical report route. You might decide to go off to university and study a particular module. You know, there's lots of different ways of satisfying the academic requirements. So hopefully your degree is accredited or recognised under an international agreement, in which case life is a bit easier. If it's not, you go forward for this individual case procedure, and we assess your qualifications on an individual basis, and will determine whether you meet our requirements or not. So whatever your academic qualifications, wherever you gained them from around the world, there is a way for you to check whether they meet the requirements of the institution, whether it's accredited, recognised, or through the academic qualification panel. Now, I've repeatedly mentioned, if you're in any doubt, contact the membership department. So there's the membership department, Institution of Structural Engineers. You've got the email address and the telephone number. Any questions or any queries, contact the institution, and we'll be more than happy to confirm your academic eligibility. And that, ladies and gentlemen, brings me to the end of my presentation. Any questions?
Thanks, Darren. That was really, really helpful. We've got a question in here from Arash. It says, hi, I have a BEng in civil engineering from Iran, not on any list, and an MSc in structural engineering from the University of Salford, which is accredited. Now, are my qualifications recognised, or have I to take other actions to be accepted?
You have to have an academic assessment. And the reason being, although you have an accredited MSc qualification, we also need to look at what you did in your first degree. We look at both of those qualifications together and we'll say, right, between the two of them, have they covered all the areas that we're looking for and that I've mentioned? So the structural analysis, structural design, geotechnics, materials. It's unlikely that all of them will have been covered in sufficient depth in your MSc. That's why we need to look at your first degree from Iran. Because the degree from Iran is not accredited, it has to go forward to the academic qualification panel. But in your case, we'll look at both qualifications. And so the question really is the suite of qualifications, both of them together combined, do both of them meet the academic requirements for the institution? Right, we have another question. To follow the retrospective route towards MI Struct D route, is there any requirements other than having the right academic experience? I currently have 6 years of postgraduate experience working for a structural consultancy and meet the 10 objectives with past projects. Okay, well, you know, first and foremost, you have to have the right academic qualifications. So we need to check what they are, and we need to check that they are at the MEng standard. If they are, great, you've satisfied the first requirement, which is satisfying academic requirements. The second stage is the IPD, and we'll be covering that in the next presentation. But if you've got sufficient experience and you feel you've satisfied the 10 core objectives for chartered membership, then you're in a position to apply for chartered membership and apply for your professional review interview. But we'll cover in the next session IPD, how you record your IPD and how you prepare for your professional review interview. The first step is to confirm that you've got the right academic qualifications.
I've got another question here from Craig. He says, would a BSc honours which is recognised on JBM as IEng, and if a MSc is completed, would that be suitable for CEng?
Craig, really good question. And actually, there's a fair few cases like this. The short answer is it depends. And it depends on, you know, what you did in your first degree. It depends on the MSc program that you're studying and whether the two map together. In terms of automatically recognised and accredited, no. If you have an IEng degree and you have an MSc, it has to go to the academic qualification panel. And there can be different outcomes. So this is where it is individual, and it's very much a case of what you studied, what modules did you study, what marks did you gain in those exams. So, for example, you could have someone who studied an IEng degree and they have performed really, really well, and they've studied lots of modules in structural analysis, structural design, materials, geotechnics, etc., etc. Now, when the AQP looks at that and they look at the accredited MSc, they might look at that and say, yeah, the person satisfied all the requirements. That's equivalent to an MEng tick. Equally, you might get a candidate who perhaps didn't do so well in the structural side of things, materials, geotechnics, and perhaps they did more in administration, contract management, hydraulics, those sorts of things. Well, in that case, the AQP may decide, no, the person hasn't quite got the level of understanding that we'd be looking for, in which case they might ask you to do further learning. The key point is it's not automatically accepted. That combination has to go to the academic qualification panel, and the panel will make the decision as to whether you satisfy the MEng requirement or not. Right, we've got another question. Is an exam required to become an incorporated member if you have a BEng? Well, yes. Firstly, you need to look at your BEng and say, right, is it accredited for IEng? If it is, great. You've satisfied the academic requirements. You then move forward to your professional review, and you have to take the incorporated member professional review interview. But to become an incorporated member, you also have to take the 7-hour incorporated member exam. So the short answer is yes, to become an incorporated member, there is a 7-hour examination, unless you go through one of the specialist routes like the research and development route. This seems like a very, very complicated process for students and the institution. Will this ever become a more streamlined process? Good question. The problem you have there is, in order to try and be as accommodating, accessible, flexible, inclusive as possible, we create all of these different routes. We want as many people as possible to come to the institution and find a way through the institution process. We also have to make sure that our processes are such that you can register with the Engineering Council. So as much as we'd like to streamline things, we have all the different options to try and accommodate as many people as possible. The most streamlined route is take your MEng, take your interview, take your exam, your MI Struct D, very streamlined. It's when you try to have different combinations of qualifications or different routes through the process, that's when it becomes more complicated. But we wouldn't want to prevent people from joining the institution. So I think we'll keep all the different routes and options. The key thing is, if you've got any doubts or any questions, contact the institution and we'll take you through your different options and we'll tell you the best route for you. The next question, what's the best option if you have a BSc IEng accredited, but you want to become a member? Okay, again, you've got lots of different options. You could join the institution. You'll be a graduate member because you've got the BSc degree. You could, once you've got enough experience, go on to take the incorporated professional review interview, incorporated exam, and you are an incorporated member. You can register with the Engineering Council as IEng. At that point in time, you could decide to go for MI Struct D later. You would have to take the chartered professional review interview and you'd take a reduced exam known as the supplementary exam. So it's not the full 7-hour exam. And that would enable you to jump from associate or incorporated member to chartered member. Another option would be for you to say, right, I'm going to top up my academic qualifications from the BSc up to the MEng standard and then proceed directly to MI Struct D. So lots of different options depending on whether you want to go through incorporated membership first or whether you want to progress to chartered membership directly. We have another question here. I have a bachelor's in technology degree in civil engineering from India, and I'm currently doing my master's in structural engineering at Coventry University. Is this case recognised? And if not, what further procedure do I have to do? Well, the first thing to do is to find out whether your degree, your bachelor's in technology or the BTEC, is recognised under the Washington Accord. So is your degree listed on the Washington Accord? Is the accreditation dates aligned with the database requirements? If it is and it's accredited and you have an accredited master's program, then you'll be fine. If your first degree is not recognised under the Washington Accord, then it's a case of taking it to the academic qualification panel and getting them to make a judgment as to whether your first degree and your MSc meets the requirement for the MEng. Once we've made that decision, then you progress through the interview and the exam in the normal way. Okay, Joe's uploaded a CPD certificate for downloading. Another question, do you have to be recommended for a fellowship after you have attained the member MI-Struct-E CEng qualification? No, absolutely not. You can stop off anywhere in your membership journey. So depending on your academic qualifications, depending on your experience, you might decide, I want to go for technician membership and I want to stop there. Absolutely fine. You might decide you want to progress to incorporated membership and stop there. Absolutely fine. Chartered membership, MI-Struct-E, stop there. Fine. The fellowship grade exists for individuals who want to show that not only am I technically competent because I've become MI-Struct-E and I passed the interview and I passed the exam, but I now have the seniority, the experience and the leadership skills to progress to a more senior grade, which is fellow. But there's no requirement for people to do that. If we look at numbers, there's around about 11,000 MI-Struct-E and around about 1,600 FI-Struct-E. So you can see the vast majority of members will stop at the MI-Struct-E level, but 1,600 of them have gone on to become fellows. It's entirely up to you to make that decision. A question from Torbor. What would you say the benefits are of becoming an incorporated member and a chartered member? Okay, if you're looking at professional membership full stop, whether it's technician, incorporated or chartered, in my view, the key benefit is you are telling your employer, you're telling clients that you are competent. You've had your academic qualifications assessed. We know that you have the right underpinning knowledge. You've gone through a period of IPD and training. You have then been tested by an independent institution through the interview or through the exam. When you come out of that process and you get designations and you might choose to register with the Engineering Council, you're saying to the world, I'm competent, I'm safe, you can trust me. Now, if an individual doesn't become professionally qualified, doesn't mean that they're not competent, but how do you know that the person's competent? They haven't gone through this process. They haven't passed the interview, they haven't passed the exam. So by going through this process, you're saying, I've tested myself, I've met the highest standards set by the institution, and therefore I'm competent. So that's important. And particularly when we look at structural safety and legislation around the world, it's important to be able to show the clients and the public that you are competent. Other advantages of being professionally qualified, well, recognition. There are mutual recognition agreements. You can decide to travel around the world. So for example, if you qualified in this country and you decided, well, I want to go and work in Australia and I want to become a member of Engineers Australia and I want state registration with one of the state boards, you don't want to go there and have to go through the same process of interviews and academic qualifications. If you're professionally qualified with us, that will automatically be recognised in Australia. It will also be recognised in New Zealand, it'll be recognised in British Columbia. You know, there's places around the world where they will look at our qualifications and say, right, MI-Struct-E, IMI-Struct-E, whatever the designation is, that's a high standard, we're happy with it. There might be some local things that you have to do, you know, understanding local code, etc., but generally you should be exempt from the bulk of the qualifying criteria. So there's recognition, the use of designations, there's international mobility, and I'd say the final thing is just CPD and professional development. As a member of the institution, you'll get access to the latest guidance, webinars, publications, magazine articles, etc. You don't stop learning. Once you become professionally qualified, you don't sit down, you know, for the rest of your life and say, that's it. You continue to learn each year, and the institution supports its members in doing that. So they would be probably the three key benefits, in my opinion. Question from Craig, is it possible to go from graduate to AI-Struct-E with a BSc and then look at MI-Struct-E in the future? Short answer is Probably no. The reason being, to become AI Structee, you have to have the minimum academic requirements for chartered membership, and that's an MEng. Now, why I'm hesitant is if you had a BSc from another part of the world, that BSc might be at the MEng level, because different parts of the world call their degrees different things. But if it's a BSc from the UK, and it's a BSc that's been accredited at the IEng level, and that's not sufficient for you to progress to AI Structee. AI Structee is MEng qualification and chartered professional review interview. I think time is ticking on, so I'm sorry for keeping you slightly longer than perhaps expected. Any more questions, then feel free to contact the membership department. We will have 3 more sessions, one on IPD and the professional review interview, one on the examination, and then one on the non-standard routes. So if you're interested in that, please sign up for the additional presentations. But I think that's it for today. Thank you all for attending. Thank you very much for your questions. And I look forward to seeing you in the further presentations later on this year.